welcome to 5 Minute Lore. Today we'll be talking about the Imperial Province of Averland. We'll go over a brief history of the region, some geography, and their former elector. Before the Empire of Men had been formed, the land now known as Averland was inhabited by a tribe that went by the Burgundians. The Burgundian tribe was infamous for their competence of horse riding and charioting. They were also skilled traders who were cynical and didn't trust easily. They were good friends of dwarves as well, going as far as providing cavalry support to their armies. The Burgundians were one of the mightier tribes of men, and when Sigmar went to assemble the tribes of men, he realized he wouldn't be able to best them in warfare. So, Sigmar rode out to meet their king alone and convince him to join his empire. Sigurd thought Sigmar was just looking for an excuse to enslave his people and asked him to do something he thought would end his death. He told Sigmar to slay the mighty dragon ogre Scaranok. Sigurd thought there was no way a human could best him in single combat. Sigmar proved him wrong. Sigmar not only slayed the beast and brought one of its fangs as evidence, but a golden ring that belonged to Sigurd's son. Sigurd felt awful for sending Sigmar on what he saw as a literal death trap, but Sigmar forgave him and welcomed him and his people into the empire as brothers. From that day on, the Burgundians were fiercely loyal to the empire. The first battle of Blackfire Pass happened in Burgundian territory where they helped Sigmar hold off the orc hordes and teamed up with the dwarves. King Sigurd's palace was called Averberg, and eventually the province became known as Averland. Averland is known for its plains, fertile land, and lack of forestry and mountains in the east. Averland is constant flooding, which helps keep the land fertile and is great for raising cattle and winemaking. Averland's wine is so good, dwarves know it's the best in the empire. Particularly the Grinstatter wine is their most popular, being very infamous in the city of Marienburg and around the empire. In the eastern portion of Averland, there are traders in gems, furs, and minerals. While they would like to exploit the mountain's rich resources, not many do, as they worry about angering their dwarven allies. The electors go out of their way to please the dwarven allies in the area. Averland is a relatively rural province, the capital Everheim and the trade fort of Grinstadt being the exceptions. Averland also is relatively diverse, home to a significant dwarf and halfling minority. Marius Leitdorf was the last elector count of Averland. He was literally insane. Marius' ascension to elector was not peaceful. Averland had been unstable for a long time. The elector countess before Marius, Ludmilla von Alptrom, had been very unpopular for her involvement in the Streisand massacre. Marius distinguished himself as a possible elector of his many military victories. Marius' ancestors had been electors before the Alptroms too, and people yearned for the good old days of Leitdorf rule. Because of these two things, Ludmilla's heir was not chosen and Marius became Averland's ruler. Marius' rule wasn't too bad, but it had its strange moments. Marius was an excellent general and duelist, but strangely, he claimed he got his advice from his horse, Daisy Kurt von Helmboring II. Marius was also known for his dramatic mood swings. He'll go from screaming of rage to random depressions of being cheery. Marius' spontaneous attitude led to him declaring wars on fictional things like bumblebees. Who knows, maybe his horse really did talk to him and tell him chaos-worshipping bees were planning on attacking Averland, but I find it highly unlikely. Warhammer may be a fantasy setting, but this seems like a bit much to me. Despite his insanity, Marius had a good heart, and he was a genius both in battle and off. Marius was a staunch ally of Karl Franz and saw potential in him before any of the other electors. Marius even voted for Karl before he ran for emperor. Marius worked hard to ensure Karl's ascension to the throne and would support him whenever he needed aid, even defending him from Midlander thugs. Karl would declare Marius one of his most trusted men, despite the fact that his Reichsmarshal Kurt Helleborg despised Marius. Their rivalry was legendary. Marius had this to say on Kurt: "He has a poor mustache, even worse dental hygiene, and a horrible sense of humor to rival a troll." Apparently he wasn't far off from the truth in that last regard, but I like to think he's wrong about Kurt's mustache. Marius has also infamously had a thing against halflings and put down their rebellion of prejudice. Marius would die in the third battle of Blackfire Pass, wounding an orc warboss while holding the line of Averland greatswords. The Empire and the dwarfs managed to win the battle, so his sacrifice was not in vain. However, it left Averland leaderless. Averland still has not chosen a leader. Marius' family kept squabbling over which Leitdorf will succeed him, and the Alptroms plan on making a comeback. Apparently he has a brother, Hans, who is the leader of the Knights of Sigmar's Blood. Averland has been invaded many times, mostly by orcs and vampires. Probably one of the most infamous invasions was that of Gorbad Ironclaw. Gorbad's Wah! Had almost destroyed the empire, and he had besieged Averheim, the capital of Averland. His army had managed to break through the city's defenses and ravage it. However, they weren't able to take the main fortress of Averberg in the city and moved on to other places to pillage. Averheim has a monument dedicated to the battle made of orc skulls. Averlanders are seen as bizarre by the rest of the empire. Averlanders are very open and honest people who believe in strange and mystical things and are very indecisive. Astrology and superstitions are common there as well. It's basically the Florida of the empire, but even more crazy looking because their elector was literally insane. Averland's banner hasn't always had the sun on it. It actually used to have a hammer and an imperial cross on it, but whenever the province of Solent fell, they changed the flag to have the sun in honor of them. And interestingly, I don't know if you've noticed throughout this video, but sometimes Averland's banner has a black background with the yellow sun, sometimes it has a red one with the yellow sun. There doesn't seem to be any explanation for that discrepancy as far as I can see. I guess they just changed the design because they thought it was cooler, they being GW, not the Averlanders. Or maybe there was just, after the fall of Solent, they decided to go for red and then black to honor them. I don't really know. No one probably knows. I'm probably just overanalyzing this, but it's something that I thought should be mentioned nonetheless. Averlanders are also known for having very ridiculously expensive looking uniforms. There's a surprising amount of history for this province, and I didn't get to include a lot of stuff I found interesting. I actually would love Marius Warhammer Total War if possible. He sounds super fun, and his brother could be a legendary hero. If this video interested you, I highly recommend you do more research because this is a massive rabbit hole.